Good evening, everyone. Welcome. The Tinks agents have gathered again to share some information with you tonight. Welcome to Michelle and Allison. We will be discussing tonight the pros and cons of staying on and off Walt Disney World property. Girls, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to get started.
Sure. I'm Michelle Ryan. I am a senior travel planner with Tinks Magical Vacations, and we love staying at Walt Disney World. And we've done both on and off property, so I'm excited to talk about it tonight.
And my name is Allison Goslin. I am a senior travel planner with Tinks Magical Vacations as well. And I also have stayed both on and off property. I have to be honest that right now my preference is on property, but there's definitely some pros to staying off property too. So excited to share that information with you.
Absolutely. And I'm Megan. I'm a senior travel planner as well, and I'll be hosting and discussing with the girls tonight. So as you join in, please be sure to say hello, let us know where you're from, and we'll try to make sure to say hello back. We also want to hear your questions. So as we take a deeper dive, if anything comes up or if you have a question that you came with, definitely plop it in the comments and we are going to try to get to them all. So just be patient. We will definitely answer everything. So ladies, on or off property. So what does that mean exactly? What does on property versus off property mean? Michelle, you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah. So on Walt Disney World property means that you are actually staying within the confines, basically, of the Walt Disney World Resort. So once you pass under the magical sign that says Walt Disney World Resort, you are at that point technically on property. And that's where so many of these amazing Walt Disney World resorts live. I think what's interesting is that some of the off property resorts kind of live on property too, but maybe not with all the same benefits. So we're going to dive into that. But yeah, once you're on property, you're in what we love to call the Disney bubble.
So one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is how large, right, Walt Disney World property is. I've heard double the size of Manhattan, which makes it a very large plot of land that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So Allison, are there resorts that are Disney owned and Disney not owned on this property, or how does that work?
There actually are, surprisingly. Most of the resorts that are within the Disney bubble are actually owned by Disney. However, there are a few that do get deluxe resort perks, but they're not actually owned by Disney. The Swan and the Dolphin resorts, which so many people are familiar with, they've been around a long time, they're actually owned by Marriott. We at Tinks can book packages through Disney for rooms at, it's actually the Swan, the Dolphin, and the Swan Reserve, which is the new one. So we can book packages for that, but it is technically.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, I think what she was about to say is they are technically owned by the Marriott. They're not actually owned by Walt Disney World.
Right.
I also would want to quickly touch on Shades of Green. Also not a Walt Disney World property per se, but on property and gets all the benefits of being a Walt Disney World Resort guest.
Right. And that's also not owned by Disney. So it is a sort of a unicorn, if so to speak. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about packages, so the off-property, some of the off-property resorts we can book as packages. So what really differentiates the two on property versus off property? Is there a title given to them? How do people as regular people try to figure this out? Or should they always use a travel agent?
Well, they should always use a travel agent. Travel agent, right? We always want them to use us.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Disney calls them different things. So when you are, they call them other great accommodations. Or more great accommodations. They have
Resorts are as another term that they use.
Yeah, they used to
Yeah.
call them good neighbor. You'll hear that.
Good neighbor
put that
hotels
around.
is another term that's been used. Yeah. So depending on, during the years how they've referred to them, and certainly Disneyland still uses some of those terms as well, which, we
Just
know always adds
Whole
color
nother
and
beast. Yeah.
confusion to the mix, right? But essentially, the ones that are on property are part of the Disney Resorts collection, including the Swan and the Dolphin and those. We cannot book Shades of Green. So I would want to just throw that out there, right? So we can book all the other properties that we're talking about tonight. As Tinks agents, we cannot book Shades of Green. The only way to book Shades of Green, of course, for our military friends is directly through Shades of Green.
Correct. So that means that no agents can book Shades of Green.
Nope.
Right. So we have a question from Matthew. So if you're off property, can you get in the parks early like you can if you are on property? Allison, why don't you try to take that one?
It depends. It depends which resort you're at. Generally speaking, if you are off property and you are not within the Disney bubble or you don't have a Disney package, the answer is no. You staying within the Disney properties, you get in a half hour early right now. And then for some of the resorts, the deluxe resorts, as well as the Swan, the Dolphin, the Swan Reserve, Shades of Green, you have some select evenings where they'll have extra magic hours, but it's only for those guests at those specific resorts, and that is not open to anybody that is an off-property guest. There's also perks that we can kind of get into a little bit more, where certain features that have to do with the Genie Plus system and getting some of the individual Lightning Lane tickets. If you are staying within a Disney property, you can book at 7 a.m. If you are off property, you cannot book until you are physically at that park.
Which can make the difference. So let's dive in a little bit to what are your favorite on-property perks? What do you think is the best on-property perk? Why don't we take that? Michelle, why don't you take that one? In your mind?
So those who have watched other lives know that my family's favorite way to travel to Walt Disney World is on property at a deluxe resort. We love the deluxe resorts. We love the proximity of them. And we love the perks that come with them. And so probably our favorite is the extra late hours that you get as a deluxe resort guest, typically happening on Mondays and Wednesdays. Magic Kingdom and Epcot, they have filtered in Hollywood Studios from time to time. Can't say that I've seen Animal Kingdom, but definitely fundamentally focused on Epcot and Magic Kingdom. It works amazing. As soon as the parks technically close, if you want to go and ride something, so we wanted to go and ride Soarin', you go up to the land building and they scan your Magic Band or your pass to confirm that you are actually a deluxe resort guest. They confirm that you are, and you're off, and you're practically walking onto rides. And there is no extra charge for that. It is one of the benefits of staying on property and being a Disney deluxe resort guest.
Which can make the difference of riding a ride during your vacation and not, especially at some of the busier times, which tend to be school vacations, holidays, things like that. So that is it can be an invaluable perk on that level. So Allison, what is your favorite on-property perk?
I would absolutely agree with everything that Michelle just said. I also like the perks of the deluxe resorts. We just recently stayed at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and that was amazing. But I also, I don't discount Monterey. I love Port Orleans, particularly Riverside. And I recently, in the last year, went and checked out our value resorts. And Pop Century and Art of Animation are two great resorts on that Skyliner that it's just really convenient. So I think my biggest perk is probably the transportation. Depending on where you are. We've stayed off property with a young child, and we've now just stay on property. And a lot of it had to do with the transportation and just the ease of it. I mean, some people will say, oh, but you've got to wait, for the bus. Honestly, it is less time waiting for that bus than it is trying to get to your car. Right. It's just so easy and so seamless that I think that's the greatest thing about staying on property anywhere.
Yes. So we have a couple of questions that I'm going to take out of order, actually. So Kathy has asked, if I stay at a Good Neighbor Disney resort and book through Disney, do I get to go into the parks early? So we kind of touched on that, how some are and some aren't. And I think the differentiator, if I could jump in here, is that there are some Walt Disney World official hotels, right? And if they are officially a Walt Disney World hotel, they do have that early park entry. But if and with those hotels, I might mention that as travel agents, we can also book those in packages, which we can go into more detail later. But any resort that is not within that bubble, as Michelle said, we are not. Is that correct? They do not get that perk of coming in early.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
they're kind of stuck. Then I want to go to Allison. You just mentioned transportation. So I do want to touch on, I'm sure people are thinking, well, there's transportation. A lot of those Disney, Disney Springs areas, they offer transportation. Why isn't that a valid option?
So
Yeah. You want to take that, Michelle?
yeah, sure. So all of those resorts generally will offer something. It just it's a matter of what that something is and how it functions. So each resort is different. Every hotel that is not a Walt Disney World resort, as Megan mentioned, generally offers some version of transportation to the parks. I'll give you a for instance. They might offer a shuttle that leaves their resort at 9 a.m. and then will pick up at the parks at 4 p.m. What does pick up at the parks mean? It might mean that their single drop off and pickup location is the Ticket and Transportation Center. So if you're trying to go to, say, Animal Kingdom, you would get dropped off at the Ticket and Transportation Center, and then you'd have to take Disney Transportation, the bus, from the Ticket and Transportation Center to Animal Kingdom theme park. That could take time, right? So at that point, is it better to then just rent a car and drive and pay for parking and pay for the rental car? And then at that point, are you really still getting the savings that you think you might be getting staying off property, when now to not spend a significant chunk of time to get what is perceived as free transportation in and out, and not spending a good chunk of time, right? Like, so you're on a shuttle and then you're on a bus.
Right. And you brought up a really good point, because parking is not free to everyone. You have to be in those, what are they calling them now? They're calling them the Disney Resorts Collection for that free parking, which means now you've rented a car and now you're paying for that and you have to pay for parking. Right. So we are worried about the transportation a little bit with those off properties. So obviously that's I'm going to say a check mark for staying in those Disney Resort collections. So we have another question. Matthew wants to know, if you're off property, when can you book your dining? Allison, you want to talk to us about that? Oh, she's frozen. Oh. So Michelle, you talk to us about that.
Yeah, I can grab that one. So yeah, so when you stay at a Walt Disney World Resort property, 60 in the resorts collection, which is, I guess, the new name for it, as we just had 2024 released, that is 60 days prior to your check-in date. So whatever day you're going to be checking in at the resort, 60 days out, you can book all of your dining for the duration of your stay. So if you're staying for 10 nights, 60 days out, you can book all 10 days worth of the dining reservations that you want to book. If you are staying at one of those, we're calling them off-property resorts for the purpose of this conversation, you will only be able to book one day at a time. So 60 days out each day as it releases, you'll be able to book the next day, which means you're going to have to get up and log on at 6 a.m. every day. So if you're going for 10 days and staying off property every day for 10 days, if you want to eat at Disney World, at Walt Disney World table service restaurant, you're going to have to get up every morning at 6 a.m. unless you're not worried about it, and then grab those dining reservations that you're trying to.
Travel agent is doing it for you.
Right.
However, You're still at a disadvantage, right?
Yeah,
You want to
you're still at
explain
at a
why?
disadvantage. And you're
Yeah.
at a disadvantage because those most popular restaurants are not available typically the day that you're 60 days out from the day of your check-in date. If you want some of those really hard to get restaurants, Topolino's Terrace for that character breakfast, Space 220, Cinderella's Royal Table. The list kind of goes on. I could keep going. For you to get those hard to get dining reservations, you typically have to push them a little bit deeper into your trip, even as a Walt Disney World on property guest. When we log in to do our dining reservations for our clients, most of the time, if I want to get, Space 220 or Topolino's, I'm going to be able to acquire that deeper into the stay. It's very, very infrequently that I've been able to grab something with even within the first 2 or 3 or 4 days of a client's trip. So it's really important, that as you're considering that if table service dining is an important part of your stay, to really consider staying on property, because that's going to give you an advantage in getting those hard to get reservations.
Absolutely. So we have a question from Tara. Hi, Tara. So she says, in your opinions, is 1 or 2 days enough time to spend at Disney World? So Allison, you want to take that? Hopefully we'll keep you around for the whole answer.
It depends what you're looking to do. If you're just looking to go to a couple of parks and you're not expecting to, your expectation isn't set that you're going to get to do everything. Yeah, I mean, you could. Do you have young kids? Do you have older kids? Do you have kids at all? Those all kind of come into play. This is where having a travel planner absolutely, helps to try to narrow down whether or not 1 to 2 days would be doable. And I personally think if you are going to do that, and yes, I do think you can, staying on property and a little bit closer to the parks helps, because you save time with that transportation. Because if you're spending so much time with the transportation, you lose out on your park time.
Absolutely. So I want to, Allison, you had talked about briefly the individual lightning lanes, making those reservations, and how that works between on property and, the not on property, not technically off property,
Right.
but even those, right? So you want to talk about that a little bit more, expand on that?
Sure. So basically, with the new Genie Plus system, anybody can book that. And correct me if I miss something on this, but anybody can book the Genie Plus system starting at 7 a.m. But if you want to do the individual lightning lane, and those are the top rides per park, it could be, let's see here, the Seven Dwarf Mine Train, Ratatouille, Everest, things like that.
Tron.
Oh, I made her go off.
Oh,
Tron
goodness.
is another one. You want to keep going with that, Michelle?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're back.
She's back.
So, as I was saying, if you want to book those when you're on property, you can do those right at 7 a.m. as well. If you're off property, you have to physically wait until the park opens, and I believe that you're at the park. So you are at a disadvantage because you may not get a time you want. You may not get a time period. That can be a little bit tricky.
You're clearly at an advantage by being able to do it at 7 for sure.
If those rides are important to you, yes.
Right. Very good point for sure. So what are some other perks, Michelle, that are sort of, I think we've touched on the biggest ones, but there's definitely more that we haven't talked about that I think are worth talking about when considering staying on or off property. So what are a couple other ones?
Yeah, sure. So beginning in 2024, the dining plan's coming back. We could do a whole session just on dining plan. I think we already have.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
But for people who want to take advantage of the dining plan, you are only able to add it to reservations that are at a Walt Disney World resort property. That's the only way you can do it. If you're going to select any of those other properties, you are not going to be able to add the Disney dining plan. And many people really like the benefits of the dining plan and being able to kind of have that baseline amount of food, whether it's the quick service or the standard Disney dining plan that gives you that one table service point per day. You lose that advantage of having kind of your food like prepaid. And for some people, that's a big advantage. One of the other ones is your magic bands, right? The magic bands, don't interact the same way when you're staying off property. You can't use it to get in and out of your resort, and other things. So those are a couple of additional things that you lose when you choose to stay off property. That having been said, there's also sometimes, I think, times when clients want to take advantage of not being in the Disney bubble. Not everybody wants to be all Disney all the time. And for some people, it's important for them to have that moment of separation, right? And so, we've spent, I think, a lot of time so far talking about, the benefits of staying, on Walt Disney World property. And, I'm a card toting member. Can't remember, honestly, the last time we stayed off property. Actually, that's not true. I can, but it's not recently is my point. Because we truly love all things Disney and being in the Disney bubble. But I certainly have had clients that, for one reason or another, they want to come in, they want to enjoy it, and then they want to come out and be somewhere that doesn't have any bit of that Disney vibe or feeling going on. So there's definitely reasons and rationale for both. And that's where I think, your travel planner can help guide you.
Absolutely, right. It really depends on your circumstances and your family's preferences for sure. So I do want to clarify. So the other thing that I thought about magic bands. So when you're on property, you get the discounted magic bands as well.
That's true.
You could purchase a magic band, but it wouldn't be at a discount. And like Michelle said, then you wouldn't be able to use it for your room key, which I think is the idea of the magic band is sort of just to make it convenient, right? And if you're juggling everything, I don't know. It's a minor thing, but for some people, they definitely love it. So Allison, talk about proximity to the parks. I mean, obviously we are talking about how these are all on technically Disney property and in this Disney bubble, but clearly the Disney Resorts collections are going to be closer. So what's the advantage to being closer?
If you have young children and you need nap times, or just you need to get a break during the day and you want to go back, you want to have lunch in your room, anything like that, it is so much easier and just realistic to either hop on Disney transportation, or if you're at one of the resorts close to the park, walk back. And you're able to do all that, and you're able to do it in a very stress-free way. Yes. When you have to go back to the ticket and transportation area and get your car, I mean, you're adding at least an hour onto your day of having to get back to that area, get your car, get to the car, get the car, drive out, deal with traffic, deal with parking, That's any huge. Of that stuff. It makes, and then no, car seats, worrying about that kind of stuff. It's just so much easier. And I think especially with that nap time, is, being able to just walk back, take a nap, and then go back after nap time or pool time to the park. I think it just makes people's vacations a lot more enjoyable. I think you just get so frazzled if you're trying to add all this other stuff in. And as Michelle said, how much are you really saving, whether it's time or money, in some of those situations? And that's where one of us travel planners can really help with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just jumping off of what Allison said there, I think particularly with little kids, the number one draw, right, is the Magic Kingdom. And only Disney Resort guests get dropped off right in front of the Magic Kingdom. Everybody else is going to be dropped off at the Ticket and Transportation Center, and you're going to be, taking a ferry or a bus or a monorail over to the Magic Kingdom, adding to the time that Allison just mentioned. And so, that's another time saver, if you're, and even if you drive, right? If you drive, you're parking at the Ticket and Transportation Center in order to get over to the Magic Kingdom. You're not parking in front of the Magic Kingdom like you are Epcot or Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom. So
Right.
there's additional time savings and ease of going back to a resort if you have little ones that need a nap, or even if you're a grown up and need to get out of the sun for a little bit.
Need a nap, right?
Days, right? Like we've had plenty of days where it's hot. We've ended up going in July and August a lot as a family because of kids in school, spouses who are in education, and it's hot in July and August. You get into the height of the day, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. It's a nice time to get out of the heat of the theme park and go back to your resort. And as Allison mentioned, that ease of getting back and forth with little kids or even as grown-ups is kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to add one more short story in there. I think while the allure of having a rental car seems really great, oh, it's my own space, we can just, throw our stuff in there. I see it as one more thing I have to be responsible for. One more thing. I was with my children. They were very young, and we lost the car in the parking lot because I wasn't aware enough to take the picture. You know what I mean? We lost the car in the parking lot, and we wasted probably 30 minutes looking for it, maybe even more. I don't remember.
Big parking lots.
It's very big, very big. And we were tired and we were cranky. And it doesn't seem like a big thing until you're tired and cranky, and or you can't find the keys, or you drop the keys in the park, or whatever it is. Yeah. I think people underestimate that, when you're on vacation, it's just one more thing that you have to keep track of when you're there. We do have another question. Sherry wants to know, what about magical extras? Allison, you want to take that one?
So the magical extras are really great. And not a lot of people really know what these are. So it's something that, we as travel planners remind people. When you book a vacation package with Disney, you get coupons to go mini golfing at one of their 4 courses. They have 2 locations, but there's 4 different courses you can play, Fantasia Fairways and Winter Summerland. And that's a really neat perk. You also get free luggage tags, which are really neat. And you get coupons for different things at Disney Springs, which can definitely add up. So the magical extras, I always think, are just a really neat surprise when you get there, kind of like, oh yeah, I get to do this. And definitely worth taking advantage of.
Well, and you also get coupons for ESPN as well for people that want to go over there.
Yep.
I think my favorite discount for that, although I am a Starbucks lover, is the 20% off Joffrey's coffee, because who doesn't love a discount off of coffee? So it's one of those. That's right.
Starbucks, but we also love Joffrey's.
We do. It's not a bad second. So, there's shopping discounts. I mean, you got to make sure you know what they are before you go shopping. That's the one thing. And I think that those magical extras now should be picked up at the front desk. Is that correct?
They used to be mailed with magic bands, but they are no longer doing that. You do have to go to the front desk and you do have to ask for them.
Gotcha. So do you guys, in terms of favorite on-property resort, I think Michelle has told us before. So let's start with Allison. What's your favorite on-property resort? And if you've stayed off-property, do you have a favorite off-property resort?
Off-property, I've stayed at the Marriott Grand Vista, and it's wonderful. It's kind of in between all the different parks down in Orlando. On-property, I think my favorite value is Pop Century. My favorite moderate is definitely Port Orleans Riverside. And then my favorite deluxe, I love Wilderness. I like the proximity and everything. I really like the theming, but I also really liked Animal Kingdom Lodge. I thought it was just a really neat experience, unlike anything that we've ever done before. And I can't say that I've stayed at a bad resort, but I would say those are probably my favorites.
Gotcha. Michelle.
So I have 2. So my favorite ever is the Polynesian. It's the first one that I stayed at when I was 7 years old. We just stayed there again last year in January because we wanted to see the renovations of it. And it's just a very special resort. I love that I can go out to the beach and watch the fireworks over the Magic Kingdom and with the music piped in. I love the proximity to the parks with the monorail to both, Epcot and the Magic Kingdom. I love the restaurants at the Polynesian. I love, Trader Sam's. I love everything about the Polynesian, the vibe, the smell. I could go on.
I do love the smell.
But I would also say, secondarily, we really love Disney's Old Key West. Disney's Old Key West, as many people know, is the original Disney Vacation Club property. And as a family, when we bring my parents with us, it's great to get that 2-bedroom villa. I love that it has a full-size washer and dryer in the unit. I love that it has a full kitchen. Not that I ever really cook on vacation when I'm at Disney, because I don't. But, to have that fridge, we've used the fridge for cases of water and snacks and things. Love having my coffee in the morning. It's great in there that, you actually have a real coffee maker and a fridge that I can put my cream and all that stuff in. My husband makes me coffee in the morning. I love that. And I love that I'm able to still do that on vacation there. But I really love that we're all able to be together. And the size, they boast the largest rooms at Walt Disney World. And so I love that 2-bedroom villa at Disney's Old Key West affords us the space that really works for our family. And we've used, I can say we've probably stayed at Disney's Old Key West more than any other Walt Disney World resort for all those reasons. Now, when we go back there, they say welcome home when you get there. Like, it feels like our home.
And it's on property, so you've got all those perks. Well, ladies, thank you so much for talking with me tonight about all the perks of staying on or off property. And I hope that we have helped some of you make up some decisions, or if you're watching it live or if you watch it later. If you do want to reach out to us for any help with a future vacation, you can contact any of us and we'll be happy to help you plan your vacation and decide where you should stay. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.